The other thing we find in this region is I feel sometimes like people are concerned or afraid they're going to make a mistake. And that's in investing. I mean, when you invest in seed stage businesses, you should expect that 80% of the decisions you make are wrong. Like, wrong. Lose all your money wrong. But 20% of them, statistically, you're probably going to be okay. Get your money back or win.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever you may be listening, and welcome to Latitude, the 43 North podcast. I'm your host, Nate Benson, Director of Media and Public Relations here at 43 North, and we've got a jam-packed show for you this week with Lindsay Stencil, the COO and Seed Fund Manager at Launch New York. Launch New York is, of course, one of the premier venture development organizations in upstate and Western New York, with the mission of identifying and supporting high-growth and high-impact startups that are going to contribute to the region. This week on the podcast, I talk with Lindsay about her role as the seed fund manager at Launch New York, what that entails, what she's looking for in new investments, and some of the gaps that startup founders and even investors need to fill so that Western New York and the upstate region becomes a premier destination for entrepreneurs. So let's not waste another minute introing this show and jump right into this week's episode with Lindsay Stencil from Launch New York. Lindsay, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So for those who don't know you, why don't you give us the quick pitch of who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Lindsay Stencil, and I wear a lot of hats every single day. So I am the COO and fund manager for Launch New York, where we run a nonprofit seed fund investing in seed stage businesses, industry agnostic, trying to help develop the ecosystem in the upstate New York area, specifically the 27 westernmost counties of New York State. In addition to that, I'm a partner and the chief legal counsel for a venture capital firm out of Columbus, Ohio called NCT Ventures. So I don't sleep.
You make that nice drive down the 90 through Ohio.
Oh, like all the time. Yeah, all the time.
I'm not a fan of that commute.
It's a long one, but born and raised here, so I'm super passionate about helping this ecosystem develop itself, and it's coming along. But it's a long road I got to haul to get here when I come.
So let's talk about it. So what was life like prior to what you do now at Launch New York? You said you grew up here?
Yes. So I was born and raised in Lancaster, New York, and I went to college here at Canisius College in Buffalo. I played a D1 sport, was several times over captain of the women's lacrosse team.
Yes.
And then I spread my wings and I went to law school, where I graduated with both a law degree and an MBA from The Ohio State University.
The
one and only. Let's be clear about it. And then after that, I actually probably was given a job I should have never been given, right? So I applied initially as an intern while I was still in school to work for a venture capital firm, NCT, that I was referring to. And I interviewed for an MBA analyst type position, and I didn't get the job, and I was very disappointed. And they called me back the next day, and they said, hey, you've got a skill set that is really different. Would you come and run our legal department? And I was like, yeah, I guess.
Absolutely, sure.
So they dropped me in the middle of the ocean, and it worked out great. I had some amazing mentors. So mentorship is a huge thing for me in my life, because I had some people who really took me under their wing when they didn't need to. And I'm forever grateful to those humans. But started out there, figured out, how does venture work?
Sure.
How do you do deals? How do you do deals in the Midwest? How do those deals compare to deals you see on the West Coast versus the East Coast? And then ended up graduating up the ladder and went from intern to associate to partner. And now I'm one of the 4 partners that are there. And then after that, I ended up reconnecting with someone here at 43 North who, I was trying to just understand the ecosystem better in the upstate New York area. And Peter Burkowski, big fan of his, and he introduced me to Marnie Levine, the CEO and president of Launch New York. And she said, hey, we really need help running our seed fund. We have no idea how to do this. And I was like, I do. So, that relationship just sort of started from there. And I've been doing stuff with Launch since 2016.
Peter Burkowski, of course, our VP of marketing. He's been here since day one, so he kind of knows.
Best.
He's a good guy. And we have a couple podcasts with him. You can look in the archive. So Launch New York, we also had Marnie Levine on quite some time ago. So again, look in our archive for that. But for those who may not go back, give us the quick rundown of what Launch New York's mission is.
Sure. So Launch New York is a nonprofit company. It's a 501c3, and we focus primarily on two prongs. Prong number one is our mentorship angle. And so what we do there is we provide mentors, seasoned entrepreneurs, financial folks, business professionals, marketing professionals, you name it, we have it, to companies that are trying to figure out their path, be it, figure out if they're a high growth company, be it figure out, if they're going to end up just going down the lifestyle path, whatever that's going to be. But we do that at our expense through Launch. So that is completely subsidized through Launch New York. And that's also a really great thing for these companies because they're basically getting a free body to help provide them with guidance and whatever else that they don't have to pay for, which is usually pretty awesome if you're trying to start a company because cash is king and you don't always have the ability to pay those kind of folks. And then in addition to that, so back in 2016, we started to launch our seed fund. So it's a nonprofit evergreen seed fund. And it's solely funded by donation dollars. And most of those dollars coming from the Ralph Wilson Foundation. And so we're incredibly grateful for their continued support over the years. We also have some other pretty big sponsors to include, Viaduct and a couple other great folks. But we use those dollars and we do true investments in those businesses. So typically, in the seed stage realm, so seed, if you're not familiar with the spectrum, there's pre-seed, like fumbling around, taking on money from friends, family, and fools. There's seed, and those range, typically like $250,000 to $1 million, a little more than that, dollars in that range, and then you go into your A raise and B raise, et cetera, et cetera. So we're playing in that seed stage phase, and we're typically leading rounds because a lot of people just don't know what to do. We had a huge talent and brain and drain suck back, 20 and 30 years ago where we lost a lot of folks out of region who would have normally been the folks that would have said, hey, this is how you do this. This is the path. And we're gaining those people back, and that's fabulous. But, we also need to help that along. So anyway, Launch New York tends to serve as the lead investor a lot of times in these deals, teeing up not only the paperwork, but also sort of what I call herding the cats, which means pulling together all the other investors who have said, I'm interested in this deal, but I don't know how the heck to do the investment. So we bring them in under our terms. So everybody's working under the same, umbrella, if you will. And that way it's actually setting these companies up for future success. It's making sure that these companies don't have chaotic cap structures and debt structures that scare off future investors.
Because you can get in a lot of trouble if you're trying to do stuff yourself. And there, for lack of a better term, there's predatory investors out there.
It's that. And then it's like, when you're self-helping, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So, if you're setting up deal terms and you're thinking, hey, I'm being scrappy because I'm taking on this debt instrument at this interest rate and this conversion and this one over here at a totally different one, it actually just makes you look really unorganized to a future investor instead of bringing everyone in at the same terms, relatively the same time and making it look like you're very methodical, right, in the way that you're doing your investment. And that's important because we're already starting behind the 8 ball in the upstate New York area. You don't look at us and think, oh, we're the the beacon of the startup world, maybe someday, but
we're getting there.
but we've got a little work to do. So you don't want to set your companies up for failure by making them look like they don't know what the heck they're doing in a region that's not, Silicon Valley. And so what we try to do is set them up for success and then provide them that continued mentorship to set them up for, their Series A raise, their Series B raise, and hopefully some amazing exits and some unicorns and dragons in regions. So that would be awesome.
That's part of the appeal, though, of startups, is the being on the edge of a dumpster fire at all times.
The only problem is, as like an attorney, right?
Right, yeah.
When I'm staring at the dumpster fire, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how do I solve this? And so, anything I can do to put out parts of the dumpster fire, those are usually preferred.
So before we dig into what it's like kind of day-to-day managing a fund, what was it about the venture world after law school that you were like, oh, because you could have gone in probably a lot of different areas of law, but you seem to have focused in on kind of the startup, entrepreneurship, venture world. Why was that?
I always had a really I just had a kind of a knack and very good business instincts. So for me, big firm life was not the most wonderful thing. Like, I just didn't want to be a cog in a wheel. I wanted to be more impactful than that. And, being in-house and in a VC firm, touching investments in companies and whatever every single day was really cool. I recognize I'm incredibly lucky. People all the time are like, how did you get your job? And I'm like, luck was about 98% of that. But, putting myself in that position, I guess, was also, it was a big component. But so, yeah, I mean, big firm life, not really my thing. Wanting to be touching, and helping shape businesses and industries was super exciting and interesting to me. I'm an entrepreneur myself, right? I own my own law firm. I own 2 CrossFit gyms. That I started from scratch. It's sort of in my blood, if you will. And so helping other people do that and chase their dreams is really important to me.
So besides commuting to Columbus, you're also running 2 gyms and a law firm, so you really don't sleep.
No, I'm not kidding you. I don't. Like, people are like, when do you sleep? I'm like, I actually fall off the grid from like December 15th till about the 2nd of January. Like, I get weird with it. You can't find me.
Yeah. Like, leave me alone.
You can't. Like, I turn my phone off. Sometimes I don't even bring it with me,
So Launch New York, managing the seed fund. Walk us through, that entire process and like what you're really looking for as a seed manager.
Sure. So there's a few things. So in order to even be eligible to receive investment dollars from the Launch New York Seed Fund, a client company, you have to be a client of Launch New York. That costs no money. It's, sign up on the website. We assign you a mentor, assuming you're a high growth company, and I'll get into that in a second. But you have to work with the company for 3 months. You have to have taken on less than $250,000 of outside equity capital. So that doesn't include like grants and other things of that nature. But if you took on $500,000 from Grandma Susie, and then you just set it on fire, that counts, and I can't help you, right? Absent some extreme circumstances. But and so then, really, what we're betting on in any seed stage business is the team. So, are the folks coachable? Do they have grit and good business instincts? And like, you can't teach grit. You've got it or you don't, right? And so we're looking for that. We do leadership assessments of our teams as we run them through our due diligence process. And then we also, we are looking like, is this a high growth potential business? If I squint hard enough, can I see that they're going to get to $10 million a year in top line revenue in 5 to 7 years? And we all know that, projections are what they are. But, if they're built on something that sort of makes sense and you've got a good team, they could figure it out. And so that's what I'm really looking for. Then on top of it, I'm looking for to make sure, their due diligence. So due diligence being, corporate docs and business plans and contracts and all the stuff under the hood that no one really likes to think about, but it's like the messy bits, stuff, right? So when you're actually selling that business for $1 billion or whatever it's going to be, that's the stuff that matters, because people actually care who they're giving their money to when they're selling the company and they're ensuring they're buying the company back, from someone else. We're going through all of that and assuming there's nothing like totally disastrous, hopefully a company should be eligible for investment dollars, right? And then we need to see what's your plan with those investment dollars and telling someone that you're going to make $10 million a year in top line revenue in 5 years, but you're only going to take on $50,000 of total investment. Like, it's probably not real, right? So, what is your plan right now in the seed stage realm? How big is your raise? And then what milestones is that going to help you to achieve so that your value is higher when you go to raise your next chunk of capital, which should be larger than what you've raised already. So it's kind of what we're looking for, if that helps.
So how many companies has the seed fund been able to invest in?
So the seed fund is actually the most active seed fund in upstate New York. Wow. We've done 32 companies as of today, and we'll close out probably 4 or 5 more before end of year.
So you're a busy few weeks before that December 15th cutoff for you.
I hustle, and I'm like, I don't care what it takes. You're getting your money by the 15th, or you're not getting it until January.
when you're looking at kind of the diversity of companies in the portfolio, what industries are you guys tapping into? Or do you have a niche, or is it really all over the map?
No, when I tell you we are industry agnostic, we are industry agnostic. So, I mean, I have life sciences companies, cancer research companies, marketing companies, nano materials companies, energy companies. We have it all. I have tons of food companies too. We're big on food here in upstate.
Clearly,
Come on now.
when I moved here in 2008, I was a lot thinner than I am now.
And every time I come back here, I mean, I had chicken wings for lunch. I'm not gonna lie to you.
There you go. So what's, seeing kind of the landscape of not just Western New York, but, kind of up across the 90 of New York State, what's exciting for you as kind of the manager of a very diverse fund?
Yeah. So one, the deal flow is super exciting to me. So there's tons of deals out there. And I would tell you there's tons of good deals out there, right? So there's just been, like any region, you ask any entrepreneur what's the number one issue they face, and it's capital and access to it, right? Yep. And so...
and usually that means they just don't know where to look.
Well, it's part of it. And then sometimes the other thing we find in this region is I feel sometimes like people are concerned or afraid they're going to make a mistake. And that's in investing. I mean, when you invest in seed stage businesses, you should expect that 80% of the decisions you make are wrong. Like wrong. Lose all your money wrong. Mm-hmm. But 20% of them, statistically, you're probably going to be okay. Get your money back or win. And so, trying to get people more comfortable with understanding that, you're looking for the growth potential and not just like the downside protection of a deal.
Because if it was a
something.
safe bet,
everyone would do it.
Yeah.
Right. But in that there is an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity for us to collectively as a region, step up and say, hey, let's do market standard terms. Let's do deals that are super attractive to the rest of the country. Let's bring in other investors. I mean, there is real opportunity in upstate New York. It's just we have to keep the cap stack, the capital access stack going, right? Mm-hmm. So Launch is filling the seed stage gap, and we have some A players, but we need more. We always need more. And, if you're listening and you're out there and you're an investor, this is an opportunity for certain.
So, I mean, you're kind of alluding to now, but where are some of the gaps then in kind of the ecosystem that's been building out in New York State?
Yeah. So we have some seed stage funding. We can certainly use a little bit more, I would say. There's a lot of risk in seed, and so people get very nervous about that. There's definitely, so in the spectrum, right before there's A, there's also this like little space called Seed Plus, and it helps people get over the hump. It's a lot of times bridge capital. I would tell you there's a gap there. There's some A players. We just need more. We just need more capital. And I think there's a lot of capital on the sidelines, and people are still trying to figure out, like, how do I do it? What do I do? So getting people more into that A and maybe some additional A funds that come into region, I think that would be really helpful. I think we have some pretty good access to later stage capital, though. New York City's not that far away. Right? And so people don't get on airplanes to do seed stage deals and Series A deals. They get on airplanes to do $10 million, $20 million, $50 million deals. So B is not the concern. It's seed to A.
Right. So aside from, those gaps, what other, from the kind of maybe the founder entrepreneur side of things, what are some of the gaps there?
Yeah. Part of it is that a lot of the founders here today are treading through territory what feels somewhat to be like they're alone. A lot of the talent left region 20 and 30 years ago, and it's coming back, right? We're seeing positive population trending. But all of those people would serve as the mentors for the entrepreneurs of today. And so, that's an issue that they just face. And it's a talent gap, right? Like getting, coders and programmers and whatever that are really good to want to come to Buffalo, you got to make those deals really attractive. And funding obviously is an issue. The nice thing about starting a business in upstate New York is it's just cheaper. Yeah. But what we forget is that people still want to know that if you're bringing in top talent, they're not going to go from a $300,000 a year salary to $100,000. You got to kind of meet them in the middle. And so I think we kind of got to think that through a little bit. But the talent thing is something they've got to face. But I would tell you the people of upstate New York are some of like the grittiest, most hardworking people in the country. And so they'll figure it out nonetheless, whether there's people helping them or not.
For those entrepreneurs and founders out there who are contemplating approaching launch for a seed investment, like what should they have prepared so that you're not slamming your head on the desk when you're looking at an application?
So initially when someone comes in, they first are just going to apply blindly on the website. There's an apply link right at the top at launchnewyork.org. It's like 6 questions. We're not asking you for your firstborn child or a kidney. It's like company name. What's your name? Do you have a phone number?
Do you exist? Okay.
Are you for real though?
Good first step.
And then we set up a call with you. So we've got a couple folks who do intake calls to kind of vet the business idea, make sure it's a high growth business, and make sure that the folks are also open to mentorship. One thing that'll quickly slam a door, and this is not me slamming the door, it's just how it works. If someone's not coachable, or if they're like, I don't want to be mentored, or I don't want a mentor assigned, I just want money, like that's kind of concerning, right? Like you can probably go anywhere then. Just call Aunt Susie or Grandma whoever and get that money. And so those are the bigger things. And then, keeping things buttoned up and clean and tight, I tell all my entrepreneurs, make sure you have, multiple pitch decks for multiple, potential pitches, right? Some people you're always going to have your true sales pitch, and that's, you're selling the product, service, whatever it is that you have. You're also going to have your investor pitch, and there's different kinds of investors, so there's different kinds of pitches. Some people only want you to pitch for 5 minutes. Some people want you to pitch for 15. Those are very different decks, and so you have to understand and be able to craft your story and be able to have decks that can help bring that story across. And so I tell them, make sure you have that, and then make sure, we're in 2018, almost 2019 now, so you should have all your files in a digital space.
Not in a folder.
Not in a folder, like under your bed. Scan those puppies in. If you don't have a scanner, go to FedEx or wherever, and it'll cost you $20 and have it in a file, because it's not so much me. Like, I'm a little bit more of a kinder, gentler investor, but you go to the next stage of investors, and they're going to want to know, okay, share with me your files, your due diligence files, and if you're like, oh, give me 3 weeks, I gotta find a Kinko's, like that's not going to work out really
not helpful.
well. So don't do that. Don't do that.
Easy, quick pro tip. So looking ahead for, I guess one other question in that regard, and I'm sure you'll give the same PR answer that I usually do when I'm asked this question. With so many in the portfolio, which companies are really exciting you? Which ones are the big standouts that folks in Western New York should be taking notice of?
Sure. So I'll focus on truly Western New York specific then. We've got a number of companies that we think are really interesting. One of them is Patient Pattern. We're very fond of their progress and the traction that they're making, not just here, but across the country in terms of providing geriatric care outcome support. So that's a very, very cool company. Graspy, led by a minority founder and entrepreneur, Derek.
He's a friend of the podcast.
I love Derek. And so Derek's doing some amazing things, was recently brought into the Google Ventures Black Entrepreneurs Showcase. And so he's really doing some cool things. We have a number of other ones, but when I look at those, those are some of them that stand out to me. Rachel's Remedies has been around for a while, but she continues to, make strong progress. But those are just a few. I mean, like I said, I've got 32 of them, and they're all pretty awesome. So just because I didn't name you doesn't. Like I love all my kids equally the same.
Equally but different.
Equal but different. Different equal. What?
So looking ahead into the next year, when is there a right time when folks should be applying? Is there a better time than not?
Not really. So the way that it works at launch is we open what we call submission rounds, and so you don't just show up and you're like, you don't throw me an application and say, give me funding. We have very specific 3-week periods every 2 months or so that we say, okay, if you're interested in funding dollars, send us your deck, your executive summary, your cap table, your business model canvas. So that is something that we do encourage people to not only use, but keep updating. I mean, you've got to submit those, and your EIR, your entrepreneur in residence, who is your mentor that we give you, has to recommend you for funding. So we're trying to create like some gates so that people aren't just like, yeah, I'm ready. Because like most people, they think they're ready, and they're probably 6 months out from being ready. And so they submit those things to us. We vet them. We send people through leadership assessments, and then we send them through due diligence. If they get there, then we send them to an investment committee. That investment committee makes a decision on yes or no funding. We document. We close the deal. So.
Now, I know you mentioned, anyone who had raised over $250K, this isn't for them. Is there a normal, or is there kind of an average monetary investment that you're putting into some of these companies?
Yeah, so what
can they expect?
Yeah, so typically we can go up to $100,000 in a company without needing to take some extra steps internally. So what we typically do is up to $50,000 the first chunk, and then we reserve monies for follow-on. And why do we do that? One, it always costs more and takes longer than you think it's gonna take. So there's that. So you probably are gonna need more money. And number two, it's actually really important for new investors coming into a round to see the support of prior investors. And so, yes, I could always sit there and go, I don't have capital, I'm not whatever. But like, really, those investors want to see, like, do you still believe in this company? Because if you don't still believe in it, why the hell should I believe in it?
Sure.
And so we try to make sure we reserve some capital so that we can participate in those rounds and sort of show that we are continuing to be supportive of those.
So again, heading over to Launch New York's website is the first step they should take.
Yes,
if they're interested.
Step 1, launchnewyork.org. Click the Apply Now button, top left.
Big and bold.
Fill out 6 simple questions.
And you're on your way.
Yes.
Shifting gears, you mentioned you also run 2 CrossFit gyms.
Yeah.
How did that come about? I mean, again, being a busy lawyer crisscrossing between here and Columbus, why stretch yourself out some more?
So my first gym we opened December 1st of 2014, and I got into CrossFit originally because one of my partners at NCT, his nephew was starting a gym, and they had a few partners, and they needed some legal documentation, but they were like, hey, we can't pay you. Could we do like a barter
Lifetime
system?
pass.
Right. So I was like, yes, you can, but can my husband have one too? And so a deal was born. And, I started that, and then we grew so passionate about it that we were like, oh my gosh, like we would love to do this. And for us, CrossFit isn't about, yes, it's great to like lift a ton of weight or move really fast or look good or whatever it is. The more important thing for us was what we saw it do for other humans. So you watched people grow in their confidence. You watched people, they think, oh, I can never deadlift that 300-pound deadlift, and then they do, and that translates in the rest of their life in such a positive way, because they go, oh my gosh, I did this amazing physical feat. Like, how hard is it for me to have a tough conversation with my spouse, my coworker, my whomever? And it changes their lives. I mean, for the better. And so, you see these positive outcomes in people and the way that they grow and develop, and on top of it, people get fit. I've had people that have lost over 100 pounds at my gyms, and we always have a 100-pound party for every person who loses 100 pounds. And it's a big deal. That is like losing a 10-year-old. So like that's a very big deal. But yeah, we started that one in 2014, and it just sort of grew and blossomed from there. And then we said, okay, in 2016, we'll open another one. And so we opened yet another one, and that one is up here. And so those continue to just kind of grow and blossom, and it's awesome to watch people change their lives.
So you have your hands and feet and everything then, huh?
Oh, I guess.
For folks who want to connect with you, if they have any follow-up questions, how can they reach out?
Sure. You can go ahead and email me at Lindsay, Lindsay, or excuse me, I'm giving my wrong email. Lindsay Stencil. So Stencil, Stencel at launchnewyork.org. That's usually the easiest way to get a hold of me, because this is going on the internet machine. I'm not going to put my phone number out there because that's going to ruin my life.
Exactly. And plus, you're gone from December 15th.
Yeah,
onwards,
you won't find me, so it doesn't matter. Like, I get weird with it, and I eat a lot of cookies.
Perfect. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We'll catch up with you down the road.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers. I want to thank Lindsay for joining me this week on the podcast. Again, head on over to the Launch New York website and apply for an EIR, and also get more information about their seed fund. If you feel like your startup is prepared for some seed investment, make sure you are checking out Launch New York. They're a fantastic resource in the region, and we're lucky to have them. And they're great supporters of 43 North and everything that's happening in Buffalo. Thank you so much for listening to the show this week. Make sure you head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review of this show. The more people who leave reviews, the more people who are going to see this show, and that's the whole goal of this whole ball game. For 43 North, I'm Nate Benson. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you at the next one.